All right. Hi, everybody. Matthew Butcher with Right Paths Healing. We have Alex Yoel again from Spirit Bloom Healing. We've been feeling the series has been going so pretty well so far. We just wanted to literally lighten it up for the last one. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about like humor, laughter, goofiness, and just kind of like maybe some of the ridiculousness that's involved in spiritual healing to make it a little more fun. Uh, so, do you have anything you want to say before we jump in?
No, I'm happy to just jump in. And I think it's a really important thing because you can really easily take healing and all the stuff you're struggling with way too seriously, and that reinforces how heavy the things that you're struggling with feels. So the involvement of just lightness and humor and seeing that as productive, not as something that's besides the point, I think is a really important thing.
Oh my God, yeah. Because I've noticed sometimes, at least through my experiences, sometimes in different spiritual communities, there can be kind of like the super seriousness like involved with everything. Is like I'm gonna meditate for like an hour and like be all rigid and whatever, and then it's just like then there's on like the contrasting side, it's like I mean, at least for myself, like thinking of just like back to my early days is like did a combo ceremony, which is this frog medicine from the Amazon, where it's like basically you puke your brains out a little bit.
Oh
And
boy.
just to like think of the absurdity of it, it's like, what am I doing right here? And just like looking back at it, like just being able to laugh it off.
Yeah. The first exposure I had to energy healing was with a network chiropractor, which
Mm-hmm.
is combination of energy healing and chiropractic care. So they make you lay down on the chiropractic table, and they make light taps on your spine in certain places based on what they see and channel energy with that. And
Cool.
people just kind of wiggle around themselves, and some people go really crazy and flail around, and some people scream, and some people laugh, and some people cry, and some people make noises like they're drowning, and
Wait, really?
some people just like sit there and they don't move at all. And so I just always, every time I'm in the office where this guy does this kind of chiropractic care, I'm like sitting there thinking, what if he's just like tapping you on the spine and none of this is doing anything? You're just wiggling around for like no apparent reason, and it's the funniest thing in the world. Um, but then you're actually getting the benefit of the work, of course. But yeah, it's just the light side. I mean, a lot of it's pretty silly stuff when contrasted with you know normal everyday society. What most people in the world are doing.
I'm curious, like what, like as if while you were in like the waiting room or like seeing different people come out is like did you notice like different energies on the people of like you heard someone like crying in a room versus like laughing or like having fun or
Yeah, definitely people come out feeling lighter. And a lot of people do have that heaviness about them. What, not sometimes you talk to the people and hear about what they're dealing with and sometimes not, but a lot of people go just because they feel like it helps them in some way. But, feeling people out energetically as they're walking out, yeah, definitely coming out lighter. I mean, it's a really deep clearing. And I kind of see it like, Reiki with a physical integration, like a literal physical integration, because he does do adjustments and stuff too.
Mhm.
But very rarely, one in every 3 or 4 sessions, you'll do a physical adjustment. And there are all these breathing exercises that go along with it. It's a really big system of breath work and energy work and chiropractic care. So, and I'm not a chiropractor, so I don't even know 90% of what's going on behind why you tap in a certain place versus another. But yeah, definitely a lightness coming out, and definitely just positive and relaxed feelings coming out of it. And definitely when you see people in the elevator, and where they walk out at the same time, or you recognize them from another session when you're not in the space, you just kind of smile about it and say, "Wow, it's kind of weird in there, huh?"
So you've done that particular like treatment method a couple times, have you?
Yeah, yeah. I've been Probably close to 100 times. I only stopped going really when COVID started, but
Hmm.
I was going once or twice a week. And it's a walking kind of practice where you walk in and you wait your turn, and there are several tables going at once. So he has five tables at once that he works on. So yeah, and it's kind of cool. It's a cool method of healing, and it's definitely got the silly aspect. And of course, the guy who runs it is incredibly funny himself, and he always, he'll like whisper something, pointing out how ridiculous it is to you, where like the other people on the other tables can't hear it. Just telling jokes all the time, and yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
What have you what have you noticed for yourself with like the different types of releases that you've had, like with that method?
Um, hmm. Well, definitely have had major emotional realizations. And I was kind of unlocking my own energy work potential and coming to understand my own abilities with that and starting to use it um, through that. So I've done things like work on myself simultaneously while receiving that work. Um, Generally speaking, I think the types of releases are the same. I get deep emotional releases tied to a physical sensation of release somewhere. Um, there was one, I think the largest release I had from that modality was I felt deep in my heart, I felt this like black hole. And I tried to visualize what was inside of the black hole, and I had to peel through layers. I was, closing my eyes and literally visualizing this. And I think I had just started learning about visualization too. So I, was trying to do that in addition to what, receiving, and then trying to feel into what I was receiving and why. And so I bust open this, it was kind of like a marble. And in that was, I don't even remember what it was, but I felt this tremendous emotional realization about my own purpose, I think.
Hmm.
And that sort of stuck with me. I was really, really uplifted for like many, many days. And that was part of my pivoting to do this work uh, more full time and more
Yeah,
professionally, rather than just, as a hobbyist.
gotcha. Like, and did you have times like when you were like coming off the table, just like laughing? Like, I'm kind of like curious, like what you noticed from the different types of releases.
Oh yeah, well, I always come off the table laughing because I'm, the guy who runs it is very similar to me, and he's telling jokes all the time. I tell jokes back, and we kind of try to out joke each other through the whole session. So,
Hmm.
so I always come out laughing, and then I always try to get one more joke in for him. Um, on my way out, I try to have the last word because he has to stay behind and keep working on other people. But yeah,
Nice.
it's it's an interesting thing to bring up in association with this topic of humor, because the work that he does is not inherently funny, but he makes it funny, which makes the entire environment incredibly welcoming. It
Hmm.
makes it like really light and really, if I want to talk, I can talk about anything. If I want to release, I can release anything. And then the public aspect is, combined with the humor, combined with the we're all working on ourselves, makes it okay to release amongst other people,
Yeah.
which, you know, like when I was starting to do energy healing, I was just sitting around my house doing energy healing and meditating and digging and digging and digging, and I got myself into a serious place. But then the second you're around other people, it's like, oh, this is a completely different thing.
Yeah,
The physical
like it changes the
contact
entire
and what we
dynamic.
learn. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So with plant medicine, is that usually done in a group setting, or is it often done in a group setting?
Yes, usually. So it depends on the intention. So for the most part, most of the plant medicine work that I've done with has been in like group ceremonial settings. Um,
Mhm.
and in traditionally, like in most of the settings, like there's usually sort of like a reverence for most of the night, just to kind of like keep the sacred space, like unnecessary talking to a minimum, unless someone like needs to like help through a process or something. But sometimes it's like, you'll
Mhm.
just like have those moments where like this lightness comes in, or just like somebody does something like so utterly ridiculous, and it's just like, at least for myself, it's just like I usually laugh or like chuckle to myself, or chuckle with whoever's next to me, because it's like I've seen myself in that exact same position before. Like whether it was like a couple of years ago of just like being confused, or like just doing something strange in an altered state. So it's like having that lightness and like coming from a place of like non-judgment, of just being like, oh, I did that.
Yeah.
But one of the like examples that was like coming up to me while you were talking was, I work with this one body worker who does a lot of, I don't know if you're familiar with rolfing, and
A
like deep
little bit,
tissue
yeah.
work, which is like a modality of kind of like separating the different fascial layers between the muscle. Like there's different protocols for different parts of the body, but oftentimes like if you work with your practitioner, like they can get super deep and it can be like extremely painful. So there's times where like
Oh yeah.
he's doing that, and I literally, like I've told him like him a couple times, is like I'll just like start laughing and I'll be like, I just want to kick you in the face right now, because it's like my body doesn't know what else to do, and like
Right.
being tense and like serious and bearing and gritting it during that time just like doesn't serve. And so
Right.
it's just like, it seems like, at least for me, the most natural thing to do in that situation is just kind of like laugh through it and just like crack jokes with each other. Because otherwise it's
Yeah.
just like miserable.
Exactly. Exactly. What about in your like one-on-one work with people and your coaching sessions and stuff like that? Does humor play a big part?
Yeah, it's like, I think I think that kind of depends a little bit on like where I am with an individual client. Um,
Mhm.
there's definite times is like where like a little bit of like humor and lightness can like totally shift someone's energy if like they're stuck in something, or it's like feeling a certain way, and it can cause like a little bit of like a breakthrough in that moment, or just like a shift in their awareness. Um,
Mhm.
and I know when like with my personal coach, like whenever we have a session, is like we'll have the serious moments, but then it's like I'm one on one. Typically, I can kind of be like a little bit of a ridiculous person. Like once like I get to know somebody and like get into the flow of it, so it's like
Yeah.
becomes a little bit more like play rather than like the super serious thing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I found early on when I started doing coaching and one-on-one healing work and stuff, I thought I was expected to be serious. And so I
Mm-hmm.
tried to keep it really serious and tried to keep it really goal driven and focused and all of these things that it really isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about lighthearted pursuit of happiness at the end of the day, and releasing anything that stops you from that. And so I thought, oh well, there's the mirroring tactic that we all use. Um, oh, if someone comes to me in a low place, I can't lighten the mood. But I found increasingly over time, the more I bring that positivity and lightness and humor, um, from the start of the session, the more that prompts other people to feel better. And just because I'm doing something where we're dealing with more serious topics, with my clients, doesn't mean that I shouldn't be myself when given that who I am wants to be funny. you know,
Yeah.
we didn't have any classes together when we were in school together, but I couldn't stop telling jokes.
Yeah.
Teachers always loved and also hated me because I wouldn't stop telling jokes.
Yeah. A little bit of a class clown thing going on, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
What was it? There was a thought that just ran through my head. Yeah. So when you're talking about like bringing the lightness to the clients, is like in terms of like one-on-one work, what I really see is kind of like in the space. I feel like in any sort of healing space is just get it like, for one, giving the people that like we're with and ourselves the permission to just be like fully 100% authentic during the session and like whatever's coming up. And so like whatever that looks like, whether that's like someone needs to be sad, serious, goofy, humorous, whatever, just to like have that full spectrum, and to
Mhm.
not block out the humor and like some of the joking lightness energy that can come with that.
Yeah, 100%. And you need to be able to dip into the serious and then come out. And like I had a new client the other day, and we did a soul retrieval, a shamanic soul retrieval, which is a really deep thing where you know, essentially picture the child within you, determine, you know, energetically, psychically, what was the age at which this person lost that part of themselves, a part of them, big part of themselves that they locked out. And then you
Mm-hmm.
walk them through meditation where they envision their younger self and they envision expressing love to and playing with and telling jokes to. And so you have to go from this really deep, sad, I lost a part of myself as a child. And I'm visualizing my sad child self to cheering the child up and reconnecting with the child you. And so it's just such a, you know, you go all the way down and then you make it okay. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's the entire healing exercise is you end on the light note after going down there. And it's so powerful. I mean, every time when I did it, when a shaman did it for me, and every time that I've done it for anyone else, you're just crying. You're just crying, and then you're smiling and crying at the same time at the end. You know,
Yeah.
and it's so good. The contrast is, you know, you need the contrast. You have to come back up.
I mean, like I think that point, like just illustrates like, you know, like sometimes if someone's having like a really powerful like emotional release where they're crying, is like sometimes it'll turn into laughter afterwards,
Mhm.
just naturally. And then like
Yeah.
sometimes if someone's like crying so hard, it just can like it's a natural progression or a shift for like the emotions and for our body to just like move energy in like a natural way. And it's just kind of
Yes.
like absolutely delightful. The other thing I'm thinking about is just like in some of the ceremonies that I do, sometimes at the end, we'll call a particular set of beings called crianças, or like they would be like little children beings. And we'd like sing
Ah.
songs and like invoke the energy of like children beings because their energy is so like if you think about like a kid, like so much innocence and so much purity and so much lightness, and it
Uh-huh.
just like welcomes all this like goofiness and total like silliness to kind of like shake off all the heavy whatever shenanigans that had gone on for the last couple hours, and it's kind of like a nice reset. um, Personally for me, it took probably a couple years to get like comfortable working with that energy again in ceremony because I'd been like so focused and like laser like intent on healing that like the lightness and like working with like the children energy and like goofiness in that way just seemed so kind of like foreign to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I had not even thought about bringing this up because I didn't bring it up, think of it in association with this topic. But one of the only longer healing, you know, things that I've done is a weekend workshop in conscious dance.
Mm-hmm.
And so in January, I was in California for a conscious dance workshop, and it's 3 days long. The first day is like a couple hours. Then the following 2 days are 7 hours straight of free form conscious dance. Whatever you feel, whatever movement you feel like, you do that movement based on the music and based on the theme that you're dancing to. So on the third day, like halfway through the day, so you're like totally exhausted, and the idea that you're dancing through is the arc of time. Uh, distant past your first ancestor, and then you dance back to the past, and then you dance forward to 100 years in the future where your descendants are, you know, doing whatever you're visualizing them doing while you're moving around, and then you dance with them. And it was when I got to that moment, which was again like 4 or 5 hours into the day without food and a couple sips of water, um, that I just clicked and realized this is a hell of a lot of fun. And like the entire
Right.
weekend until that, I didn't even realize that like dancing was fun. I was like, oh, this is a serious shamanic dance healing thing that we're doing. And then it just became fun. And it is so important because it just, is. It just, made everything that I was working at clearing feel complete, because I was like, I can come out of that and feel happy. Not
Mm.
I'm coming out of that and like, okay, I did some good work here. No, we're trying to become happier. We're trying to become happier and happier and enjoy more of our of the days of our lives. That's the purpose of healing work. It's in my mind the purpose of life. It's just learn how to be happy.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like it reminds me of like, so when I did my initiations into Bwiti with the Boga and like Gabon, Africa, it was like that's one of the things they talk about is like ceremony. Like it has its healing purpose, but it's also just about like that celebration and like joy of life. And it was just like interesting to note, like in the middle of ceremony, like it's a very different format of style of ceremony, but like oftentimes it's like they just be like cracking jokes with each other in the middle of it and just like in total like celebration of life and being present and alive, and like also just like dancing it off because like it's like the spirits moving through them, and like that's also one of the ways that they perform healings is to like have the person like move and dance and like remind themselves of like who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just like
Yeah. Very
I
cool.
just love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much out there that involves humor, and I really found that like a lot of healers are bright and light and happy kind of people and joke tellers, and I think there's a reason for that. There's it's and the Michael teachings, we've talked a little bit about that in the previous videos. So there are 4 kind of categories in healing, which is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And those all correspond to the 4 kind of broader personality characteristics and the 4 axes. The axes are assimilation, inspiration, expression, and action. And so the humor is really an expressionistic thing. It's expressing a feeling for its own sake, and expressing happiness for its own sake, and expressing I want to make you happy, right? I'm gonna laugh. You can't. I guess maybe things are funny when you're alone, but it's the existence of other things that, in the contrast, that make those things funny. So just expressing your feeling about the difference between things. It's a really it's a really essential part of the human experience.
Oh yeah.
You won't get anything done if you're just serious all the time.
Yeah, just kind of like, at least for me, it just kind of like kills the flow almost.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
There was an idea that just popped into my head. Oh yeah. So what I'm kind of like curious, like how is, I guess, this topic been like assisting you through the whole kind of like COVID shenanigans? And like, I mean, it is serious, but like there's also kind of like the absurdity of the fact that like we've been quarantined for like what 2 months now. Is like, how has humor and lightness helped you, or like has it influenced your journey through this time?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, we watch a lot of comedy and stand up and funny shows. We rewatched Parks and Recreation, you know. Yeah. It's just important to keep that up in your life. And when, a lot of times I think you get that out of your day when you're interacting with a lot of people, but everything work wise really gets extra serious in these, when we're apart, because everyone's just trying to get things done in this less efficient work setup. So yeah, I think it's maybe not, I don't know if it's more important than before, or it's definitely not less. And the contrast that from the typical setup of society, what we got used to, and then just how much that can change, like in the blink of an eye. It's there's the funny side of that. There's the funny side of like, particularly in New York, like, people are paying tons of money for small apartments and now they're stuck in them. And it's like how, it makes the things that we accept seem silly.
Yeah.
Because of just because we accept them believing that there are all of these constants, and based on our understanding of things, but then something completely unexpected happens, you know. And so yeah, there's definitely that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like as you were talking about that, like the absurdity of the cost of the apartment. I remembered, I think it was like in February when this whole thing started. I went to the grocery store for, I think it was like one of the first days after lockdown, and I come around the corner to the meat case section, and it's entirely empty. And there
Mhm.
was a woman there just kind of like staring blankly at it. And I'm just kind of like, I saw her, looked at the meat case, and I just started laughing out loud at the absurdity of the image and just kind of like walked on past, chuckling to myself. Because it's
Oh
like, at
man.
this point, it's just like, it's like, did we ever, like, these certain things, and sometimes these like spiritual awakenings or journeys or things that happen to us in our lives is like, never in a million years could we have imagined it, and like never in a million
Hmm.
years did we think it like could be as weird and as strange and like absurd as it actually is.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
It was just like the
So, do you have anything else to add?
to
Do you have anything else to add in terms of the topic?
um I mean, I think just like I mean, just in terms of everything that's going on, just like do like the lightness is good, just like do whatever we can to bring the lightness to the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's my thoughts exactly. I think don't get stuck in your own and your own anything really. Just don't get stuck. Just keep things changing and keep things moving towards the positive, happy, laughter inducing things in life, because those are what make it all enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the positive side of why we're here.
Oh, yeah, yeah, just yeah. I guess the like run off that. It's just kind of like the laughter, just like keep, keeps the chi moving. Where like sometimes I feel like the
Mm,
seriousness and the heaviness is like creates that stagnation, and it's just like, what do I do? But like if you can keep it moving, it helps lighten the load in all areas.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. I think that about does it for today. Unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, no, I'm good. I'm good. This was it was a good talk, and it was a good just recap of I yeah, I think I didn't know that the humor in myself when I was young was such a valuable part of life, and I really really feel that now. So it's good to share that.
Nice. Well, it was
Yeah.
good talking with you. And everyone, again, if you have any more questions about how to get in contact with either of us, our information and the websites will be in the description below. And then if you want to direct contact us, feel free to reach out to us either on Facebook or wherever you see this. So thanks for watching.